My view of poetry, which led me to suppress my poems, has not changed, but I feel that it may now have matured to a point at which it can usefully illuminate and be usefully illuminated by my poems. This feeling is my reason for cooperating in this broadcast. As I reflected on my past poetic activity, I perceived that in casting my voice and my mind in the poetic mold of speech, I had shut out the realization of the very thing I sought. The equivalence between poetry and truth that I had tried to establish was inconsistent with the relation they have to each other as the one art and the other the reality. I came close to achieving in my poems trueness of intonation and direct presence of mind in word. But what I achieved in this direction was ever sucked into the wall of poetic artifice, with its overpowering necessities of patterned rhythm and harmonic sound play, which work distortions upon the natural proprieties of tone and word. My poems have a strong attraction for some, which proceeds, I think, from their appealing both to the innate desire for the true in the use of words and to the cultivated appetite for the poetic in their use, and their seeming thus to offer two kinds of satisfaction at once. Because they are poems, they can provide only one kind of satisfaction, poetical satisfaction. But the very evocation of the other kind provides something extra, a bonus. To many, however, this bonus is an annoyance. For a number of poets, my work has been as a new primer of poetic linguistics. For me, it is poetry in extremis, poetry caught in and confronted with its factitious nature as a mode of linguistic expression. How did I make the mistake of assuming that from the art of poetry, the reality of live personal truth could be precipitated? The time had come for someone to make the mistake. Poetry gradually appropriated the house, the haunted but never occupied house, that language had built for the speech of truth. The time had come for someone to put the occupancy to the test by treating it in good faith as legitimate. Through my mistake, I have learnt things that I could not have learnt or learnt so well otherwise. I have not learnt them just for myself. I see them as part of the equipment needed for our giving ourselves a new linguistic dispensation. I have learnt, for instance, that poets, to be poets, must function as if they were people who were on the inside track of linguistic expression, people endowed with the highest language powers. That in functioning so, they not only block the discovery that everyone is on this inside track, but confuse themselves and others as to the value of their linguistic performances. That the novelties of expression achieved in poetry leave ordinary speech and its literary counterpart, prose, sunk in their essential monotony and unaspiringness. That there is no vital connection between the verbal successes of poetry and our actual speaking needs. They are no more than dramatic effects produced with words. I have learnt that language does not lend itself naturally to the poetic style, but is warped in being fitted into it. That the only style that can yield a natural and happy use of words is the style of truth, a rule of trueness of voice and mind, sustained in every morsel of one's speech. That for the practice of the style of truth to become a thing of the present, poetry must become a thing of the past. It has been hard for me to learn such things, and harder still to reconceive my working course in the light of them, and even harder to communicate what I have learned. Among my problems, when I endeavor to recount my findings, that of offense raises its head menacingly. I am aware that my animadversions on poetry will excite not only disagreement, where there is esteem of poetry, but personal resentment besides, since esteem of poetry and self-esteem tend to become intertwined, as I have reason to know. I take this problem seriously. Any offense felt can be presumed a thing I would have averted, could I have done so.